Good afternoon, good morning, depending on the time zone that you might be tuning in from today. Welcome back to another session here at Fintech Nexus. I'm your host today, Todd Anderson, Chief Content Officer at Fintech Nexus. Digital banking, how FIS is using a no-code platform to stay ahead of the curve. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Jeff and Sunil for some introductions as we get our session started here. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you first.
Thank you very much, Todd. It's a pleasure being here today. My name is Jeff Ward. I'm Director of Financial Innovation at Decisions, and my job is to challenge people to change and or get innovative. That's my gig.
All right, and Sunil, tell the audience a little bit about you and your role at FIS.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm with FIS. I'm a Senior Director working under the Global Business Process Automation Group. In FIS, I manage the platform, tools, and innovation. Been part of FIS for 7 years and enjoy what I do here and looking forward to this discussion.
All right. Well, I think, a good place to start would be, and Jeff, I'll go to you first on this. How is no-code technology being used today? And maybe when you answer that, if you can just give the audience a quick kind of primer on exactly what we're talking about when we say no-code, in case there's any novices or those that might not be as familiar with some of the terms that we might be using during this discussion.
Fantastic, Todd. That's a great place to start. So, I would argue that no code is in more places today than ever before. No code use cases can exist from, say, a web page, from an apply here button on a website to back office processes where a manual process like an Excel or something like that could live. For those people that are not familiar with no code, what we're talking about is a kind of a visual programming language. So the ability to drag and drop steps, forms, integration rules from a library, if you will, onto a canvas to create a workflow, to create an integration to a database, to create a rule to run data through, if that helps.
And Sunil, sure, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, we have clients, across the board that are leveraging no code to bring out that uniqueness that is pertinent to their organization. Rather than doing a customization to a type of technology that they would tailor to fit them like a glove, rather using no code to bring out that uniqueness to make them special, if you will.
So Neil, turning to you, what potentially, if I'm a bank, if I'm an organization, can be unlocked by moving in this direction, as maybe opposed to the traditional way that we might do things, which is, obviously with code, and what the steps might be involved with. We're going to launch a new product, make changes to a product, versus this environment that we're talking about here today. Because my understanding is, when you launch a product at a bank or whatnot, there's lots of steps, lots of testing, and it's, 12, 18 months down the line, then a new product comes out. What can this potentially unlock for institutions that can get them to market quicker and can make changes quicker?
Yeah, that's correct, Todd. So what we've seen generally in the industry as it relates to technology, right? So there has been a paradigm shift all the way with coding to low code. Now we're talking about no code, right? Obviously, with advancement in technology, this is enabling us to adopt these no code platforms. And it could be employed not just your traditional product development, but it could be UI development. Now we're talking about automation tools. All of it that shift from coding standards to no code. When we look at the benefits, it allows both your technical and non-technical users to utilize it, right? So instead of your traditional computer programming, now you're more sort of using graphical user interface, like Jeff was referring to, drag and drop, right? Or you have your natural language way of creating your code. So we see that paradigm shift happening, as well as moving away from coding to no code. But what does it provide in terms of benefits? Obviously, it's going to improve your development cycle time, right? So you're going to be faster. You're going to be faster with developing. You're going to reduce your time to develop, which means you're going to be faster in terms of faster to market, faster to implement, right? So, and the other benefits that we don't generally talk about is also you're empowering your citizen developers, right? You will have non-technical users. Now they are able to create this code and be able to develop these. And also indirectly, it's helping with managing end user expectations. So you're now more interlocked with their involvement, and also adapting to changes. When any changes are needed, the end users are able to make those and be much faster. So these are some of the benefits as you start moving into no code.
Typically, I would wait to potentially ask a question here, but we did get one from Jim Perry in our audience, who says, he is a part of a community-based financial institution as community-based financial institutions consider exploring no-code solutions. What internal capacity / talent would they have to possess on their team to manage no-code implementation?
That's a great question that I may take a stab at it, and then Sunil, you can keep me honest, right? I think that from a support mechanism, from a team mechanism, a lot of organizations are going to have a traditional coding staff that have a specific discipline, a specific certification, a type of language to support their tech stack. What we have found is that individuals that have business logic have the ability to build and or create in our visual programming language. So I think what's kind of cool about that question, and if you compare it to the market today, that we have people that are resigning at a higher level than ever before, and replacing that talent can be rather expensive, maybe 30% greater than it was yesterday from what I've heard. And that, having those specific disciplines may be making those employees, those assets more and more expensive, right? From a market perspective, from a competitive perspective. And being able to leverage an individual that's got business logic and then having them build in a drag and drop situation has the ability for you guys to have more capability, more access to more individuals at lesser cost, if you will.
Yeah, just to add to what Jeff was mentioning, I agree. So the other thing would be in terms of the talent and the skill sets needed. As you all know, we are having that technology crunch in terms of identifying resources and availability. So this would allow, as you move into no code, you're empowering some of those citizen developers, right? You are empowering them to be able to use the platform to be able to build these applications. In order to start, again, I would also recommend folks who are looking at in this journey, starting off with this journey, look at your use cases, right? I would start off with a more straightforward, simple, use case to build upon this, and then embark on much more complex, right? So you start identifying those use cases, and most of these platforms allow you to also build custom SDK solutions, which means if you need to have any code created, it provides you that capability. So in a nutshell, I would recommend to look at your use cases, start with the simple use cases, and then build upon that, right?
Thank you, Jim, for your question, and to any audience members who might have just joined us or joined us a few minutes in. We do encourage your participation, so please ask questions throughout our conversation. We'll do our best to get to all of them, but please use the Q&A function and put those questions in. Just kind of related to Jim's question, how much of a organizational shift when it comes to mindset do you need to move in this direction? I mean, is it a significant shift for an organization to say, hey, here we are today, let's move to a no-code platform, or let's move in this direction?
Mhm.
Is it, kind of a smaller shift? Like, how much internal, strategic and, kind of shift the overall in the firm and how they do things does there need to be to move in this direction?
Again, that's a great question, and Sunil, back me up here. I would argue I've spent a lot of time in the banks and in the fintech space, and what I've seen are organizations that have been impacted by this nasty pandemic that we've had. And what I found is that organizations that are forward thinking and that have hired individuals that represent a center of excellence or innovation or customer experience are forward thinking about how they want to approach the market. And so I don't think it takes a monumental shift from an organization perspective, from an FI perspective, to go in this direction, but it does require the desire or the need to move faster, right? And so where organizations can test no code or test new products or be reactionary to market conditions, if they're interested, this is a way to address that, if that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. And to add to that, also with the pandemic situation, and also how we want to be able to be much faster to the market, implement your products, get it faster to market, faster to implement. These are tools that'll help you, get to that paradigm. And one of the things that we really talk about, and we focus on business processes, right? That's another area where we utilize automation, business process transformation, and there is a number of no-code platforms that's available, right? We work with Decisions, using Decisions. We've employed no-code automation solutions. What it does is transforming your business processes. So business processes do not just your day-to-day activities. It's going to have a direct impact to your end clients as well as revenue acceleration, right? So looking at overall, we have to look at different categories. So from a mindset perspective, when you are a developer, you're more sort of empowering the developers with these tools, so they are able to be developing and be able to develop code faster and deploy it faster, which which is more empowering your development. Now you're also on the business users, you are empowering them in terms of being more involved in the development process. So you reduce the friction. You're also making sure your end product matches the requirements, right? So overall, you're reducing that cycle time. You're improving your efficiencies, your customer experience at the end of the day, as you move to the no-code platforms.
So Sunil, I might ask a question in there. In your leveraging of Decisions, have you seen that expanse from line of business to developer? Have you seen that shrink in leveraging of Decisions and leveraging of no code?
Yeah, we have deployed it and utilized in a few different areas. Yes, the ability to be faster with your development, be able to involve your business users, and be able to, some of these processes are much complex. So as we build upon a platform and automation solution, utilizing these intelligent automation solutions, it helps us be much more faster. And like I said, again, at the end of the day, it's not business process of getting things done. It's more about how do you transform these processes, redesign it, improve it, and overall you see that end user experience improve.
Perfect.
You mentioned a little bit about the helping of customers. I mean, how much, when we talk about some of the shifts that we've already mentioned, is it all right, internal processes have improved or are improving using this, versus, helping the end customer or the consumer or whoever the bank or institution is serving, how much does it impact both of those areas? Is it more on the internal side where it's becoming more efficient or how much the after effect then helps the customer that you're ultimately trying to serve?
I can answer that, Jeff. Yes, I think it is both, right? So as you utilize these technologies, so in case of, let me take BPM, right? Business process management and automation. As you look at these internal processes, you're really designing, optimizing it using your no-code intelligent automation platforms, building a solution out, which is going to optimize your business process. Obviously, it's going to internally provide savings, cost benefits, and make those processes much more efficient. But at the same time, you're having an impact on the end client experience as well, because now you're able to provide a better experience, serve them very quickly, right? Able to implement faster, right? And deliver those services in a much faster and a seamless way to your end clients. So it is both that you are impacting as a result of transforming these processes and using these technologies to being much, much faster.
Mhm. I don't think that I'm not going to argue with you one bit, Sunil. I think you're spot on. I think today what I see when I look at my kids is that their attention span is so much shorter than mine was when I was a kid. And I think, we have the blessings of Amazon, and I can find something on the web and I can order it and it's going to show up on my doorstep the next day. Versus, when I was a kid, it took a long time to get stuff. So I think our expectations are much different from, kind of stimulus response than ever before. And so being able to bring efficiencies in the back of the house obviously provides more gains, more efficiencies for our clients on the front end of the house, if that helps.
Yeah, agreed. And you're right in that. So the client customer expectations has increased. Also, the applications and systems that we are talking about in every organization, that's always increasing, and these solutions are becoming much more complex. So you have both the increased client expectation as well as complex systems. In some cases, you have legacy systems as well. So it is important to make sure that we can bring all these systems together, disparate systems. How do we tie them all together? How will we be able to enable our developers to be much faster in developing these solutions that'll impact both the employees of the organization, improving their productivity, as well as your end client experience.
As a reminder to our audience, if you have questions, please put them in. Just click the Q&A button in your Zoom window, and you can go ahead and ask Sunil and Jeff questions. Picking up on kind of that last point there, when we talk about some of the processes, is it the menial tasks, the tedious tasks? I remember when we met before this session today, we talked about enabling your employees to be smarter, and so what types of processes are we looking at here? Sunil, you mentioned complexity a couple of times, but can we maybe dig a bit deeper on what this potentially unlocks when it comes to making those in your organization smarter and working on things that ultimately will probably impact the bottom line in a bigger way?
Yeah, working on the automation space, I can tell, when we look at some of these processes, there is a lot that, whether it be back office, front office, that is very manual, repetitive in nature, right? So we target on seeing how we can deploy intelligent automation solutions to it, redesign the process itself, and then automate them in order to make sure it's much more efficient. So, there are those processes that we target, and the automation in itself is a journey, right? So what we talk about was identifying these opportunities that you can target and automate quickly. As you embark and start automating all of these, you will reach a stage where you're now getting into more complex solutions, right? When I say complex, all of these business process involves having processes, people, and data, right? So you're looking to manage all of that across different siloed systems, right? So you need to have a solution that will tie them together, be much more efficient, able to develop on the no-code platform, so you're much faster. So those enables the organizations to move from having that journey all the way from low, medium to higher complex solutions, right? So it's a journey that the automation that we embark on. But I think identifying those, discovering those, ensuring you use the right technology, no-code platforms to build solutions and be much faster would be my recommendation.
Mhm. I would completely agree with that. I think that, if you're thinking about the tedious, right, you're thinking about things that may have once existed in a manual environment, right? If I was going to pick on any of my brothers or sisters in banking, I could pick on both sides of the balance sheet, whether it's treasury or loans, right? Deposits or credits. In the credit side of the world, as you get into complex credit products, you're adding variables to an approval, you're adding variables to a renewal, you're adding variables to, compliance certificates or documents that require an interaction between a borrower and an organization. And a lot of times what we see is that those organizations have automated or gotten those manual processes down as fast as they possibly can, but it's still a manual process. And what can obviously occur in that situation is that there can be human error, right? What I find with automation is that, you need to be able to integrate with a database, and all of these organizations have lots of technology in their tech stack, lots of databases. So you need to be able to integrate, talk to these databases. You need to take that somewhere through a workflow, and then you need to apply a rule to it. And then you can do something with it, right? You're making that data, you're making that process intelligent. And I think if I was to pick on a compliance certificate, that could be a borrowing-based certificate, that could be a report that a borrower has to submit to the bank on a regular basis. And if they are in compliant or if they're not in compliant, that can kick off workflow that can go in two different directions, right? And if that's a manual process, and if I'm working with my credit analyst and I need a response from him or from her, and they're busy doing something, I'm now waiting until I can get that response back, right? And my client may be in compliance, may not be. But being able to automate that, being able to push it somewhere, see where it's at, see where the next step is, see if they're in compliance or not, is a great use case for us to tackle for organizations to automate.
Yeah, and then to add, Jeff, there are a lot of these processes. When we look at organizations, you have back office processes, front office process, and then there are a set of products where we talk about as employee productivity, right? All of these are systems that work in a silo in most cases, and in general, many of the organizations, medium, large, would have around 400, 500 applications across these. So tying them together, these systems, and making sure that you can have that data flow between them. Because today, if you look at it, you are having employees bridge that gap between these systems with processes or manual steps that they do. We're looking to have automation help, replace that, help enable to be much more faster with the process, but also be in compliant, reduce the errors, and be much more efficient with those solutions.
Is there a, thinking about maybe some of the banks that have been around for some time, is there a limitation on the connectivity within the organization of kind of old technology, new technology, and kind of how no code might impact some of what was built by the bank and maybe a different time? And does that make some of this, I'm thinking back to the earlier question we got when he was talking about more on the technical staff at your bank, but what about some of the issues with the mismatch of old technology and new technology?
Great question, Todd. Sunil, I'll let you back me up on this one. I think the nuances of no code give you the ability to extend and expand that technology, better now than ever before, right? And instead of going into, we'll pick on an old AS400, right? That is the machine that exists, and probably if you looked under the covers, that may look like spaghetti, right? But it's a workhorse. It's a machine. You can't break it. You could throw it in the water. You could dump coffee on it. It still goes, right? Being able to take the nuances of that technology, the development, the depth of that technology, use it at what it's best for, but then leverage a no code to bring out the best of that via a no code technology, I think is really where there's a sweet spot.
Yeah, that I agree, Jeff, in terms of how do we leverage those capabilities, right? And you are going to have disparate systems and legacy systems in your organization, right? That's just going to be there, right? Not looking at completely transforming or moving all of those, right? You are ending up having, whether it be through the organizational acquisition history or how the organization has come together. Like I said, you can expect to have a number of these applications. What we're looking at, how do we tie them together, have that automation layer or orchestration layer that's going to connect or be the glue to tie up all these together, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'll enable you to be much more faster, much more efficient in terms of the faster time to implement and faster time to market. That'll provide to you.
Yeah, the only other piece that I would add to that. So, if I was an organization and I was going to do a major update or an upgrade or some type of customization to legacy technology, I'm probably going to spend a whole lot of time building an ROI for that project. I'm going to have a whole lot of red tape, of bureaucracy that I'm going to have to deal with. And, I would argue that from a no code perspective, I might be able to handle that expand capability almost from a ticketing perspective, right? I get issued a ticket today, my team works on it, we push it into production tomorrow. And so, being able to move fast, I would say that that's a key, but not going through the pain and the energy and the understanding of those huge customizations is really where there's value in no code.
Yeah, and also as you look at some of these no code, typically organizations have development teams. You're already used to creating code, so you could look at having your applications, which is heavily coded, but then maybe have a workflow that triggers subsequent actions that be built off of a low-code platform, or maybe a UI that was built off using a no-code platform. So you could integrate these, and then over a period of time, you would be able to adopt much more no-code automation solutions. So it depends on the use cases and depends on how the use cases and whether it's complex or low in priority. That's how you would start wanting to work on these.
We had a question come in here from one of our audience members, Dan Fahini. What is the relationship between no code platforms and RPA? For anyone who doesn't know what RPA is, robotic process automation.
So Neil, would you like to take that, or would you like me to take a stab at it?
I can take that. Working with the COE, we do have RPA solutions. So it's robotic process automation, where you're looking at developing automation solutions that you convert your manual or repetitive task, or even long-running processes, right? That requires a lot of effort. You're looking to convert that, have an automation solutions. We refer to it as bot, running those processes, right? So you're now transforming your manual tasks to a digital worker that runs these RPA solutions. Now, what we are seeing is, into your question about how no code is tied with RPA. In general, I can talk about automations itself, where we also internally build some of these no code platforms, where we see with the increased use of AI, ML, the process of developing these solutions is where we start introducing no code. So in order to enable the development be much faster, whether it be through natural language, you can use drag and drop capabilities to build your automation, or even AI ML, right? You could have mechanisms where it is a self-healing process. When there are changes, that's the other area. It's not about development and deploying it. You need to maintain and be able to adapt to changes. So when changes come in, how easy it is for the teams to be able to make those changes, deploy it. That's also another area where we see more of low code, no code platforms being used to develop these solutions.
And Sunil, I might ask you a question, and maybe you can help me clarify this, but what I understand RPA to be able to do is to do screen scrapes, call into databases, do this on a regular basis, and their settings to fire off into these databases are managed by a center of excellence. But I've heard, and correct me here, but I've heard that sometimes those settings on those databases or an update to those databases may interfere with the bot's ability to fire off into that database. And I would think that if you were to leverage no code in and around that environment, you could orchestrate those bots, if you will, to be firing to the right database at the right time, regardless of setting. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would add to it. So you're automating that through your RPA bots process. So what you're doing in there is adding intelligence to the bots itself. So in the first layer, you were automating a process that was done manually. Now you're starting to add more intelligence or rules and decisioning, right, into the bot. That's where you start adding the rules logic. If to fire to those, find out those right database connections and connect to those, right? So there is a level of intelligence being added. So you utilize these technologies, no code, low code platforms, or your AI ML integrations to be able to add that intelligence into the bot. So that'll be the next level of your maturity in terms of progressing with the automation solutions.
Thank you.
Again, as a reminder to our audience, if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those questions. We got another question as I said that. So from another audience member here, Rafi Aladina, is the tool mainly for programmers to make their lives easy and faster, or really for non-programmers to have some technical background? Can it be used for transaction-based? Example given is credit card type.
So, Neil, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, I mean, I think it is for both, right? So as we had mentioned previously, from a development or programmer's perspective, it's going to make your lives easier, right? In terms of using this no-code platform. I mean, even if you look at traditional programming too, you build reusable components, right? You create in your code reusable components that could be, and even functions that you could be called in, right? Think of it as more of an extension to that. Now you're able to utilize these components rather easily into your programming as you develop, right? So it definitely benefits the development or the programmers from a tool or from a capability perspective. Now, from enabling non-programmers, what it does is, like I said, it enables your citizen developers or your business teams to be much more involved in the development process, right? So you reduce that friction of end user expectation versus development, because now they're more involved in the process of development, so resulting in you getting a better solution at the end of the development, right? The other aspect too is also as you get changes, once you deploy a program out, it's just the beginning, right? You have to maintain it. There's going to be changes coming in. That's when you are enabling some of these business teams and others to make those changes rather quickly, right? And be empowered to do that. So that's another area where, obviously for non-programmers without technical background, this will be very beneficial.
Mhm. And you talked about a subject a little bit earlier, and what I find fascinating is that automation is not a fix it and forget it. Automation is about a journey, right? It's about continuously getting better. It's about continuously asking the question and challenging ourselves and finding ways to solve that. Would you agree to that, Sunil, or add to
Yes,
that?
yes. So I completely agree. That's a journey. So like we talked about some of the tools here, RPA. As you start your journey with automation, you start off with looking at those simple tasks that you can automate, right? Whether it be a development of a bot and deploying that, and then as you start automating more processes, the decision making and the complexity comes in, right? So you're now coming into a process where it was just not a manual repetitive task, but there was a decision a human was taking, right? You're looking to replace that with the bot and trying to add a decision making or intelligent capability to the bot. So that's where we call about the journey to hyper automation, where it's nothing but your RPA, but now you're incorporating AI, machine learning, to add those intelligence and make those decisions, right? So it is a journey as you work through the automation. It involves discovery, identifying your processes, prioritizing those, starting to deploy the solutions, to develop and deploy the solutions to automate those, and then incorporating more of technology. And from a technology perspective in this space, we see as more and more advancement with more and more technologies, AI, ML, you're able to add those, even automate those complex processes now much faster. And that's where like tools like no code, low code comes in, right? Where it's enabling you to be the teams that develop and deploy this to be much faster in deploying these solutions. And there could be a number of different processes too. So to give examples about back office processes, in banking sector, you talk about account closure. In order to complete an account or close an account, you have to go through a series of steps, verify those before you complete it. It was done manually. Somebody has to go through those processes, checks, make sure balance is zero, and then take the next steps in closing, right? But with a bot, you can define those steps and rules, and then create an automated bot that would run and execute those steps. Obviously, you get it'd be much faster, but you get the consistency and less errors as a result of that process.
You mentioned, obviously some new technologies, AI. We talked a little bit about RPA. If a bank, fintech were to have a no code platform, how much potential does it give them, or flexibility does it give them to connect to new technologies beyond the organization? Obviously there's a lot of talk about crypto and blockchain, but not going in that direction. But there's a lot of API based technologies out there. There's a lot of move towards open source. If an organization is moving to a no code platform like this, does it give them that flexibility to enable better connectivity to some of these things outside the organizations? Because there's a lot of movement happening from a variety of areas in financial services, and the connectivity of data portability and all that is increasing. Does this help that enablement as well?
I would argue 100% that no code, there's some components to no code that I think are very critical, right? I believe firmly that integration capability is critical these days. Being able to connect to databases, legacy or new, is more important than ever. I think it's also very critical to have workflow that is included once you've attached to those databases, right? And by workflow, meaning go from point A to point B, point A to point B to point C, taking that data somewhere. So not only do I have the connection, but now I can take it down the highway, if you will. And then I think another aspect of no code is rules, right? So rules we deal with each and every day, right? We deal with rules. We got to get up. We got to get out of bed on time. We got to get our kids somewhere on time. We have rules that as a society we've created. And to Sunil's point, the process of automation, at some point, you're going to have to get intelligent. Rules gives you that intelligence. And then another component that I think is very, very important is a form capability. That form we see each and every day could be a web page. That form that we see each and every day could be a dashboard, right? And so by bringing that all together in a no-code tool, I have the ability to connect. I have the ability to take it down the highway. I have the ability to make that data intelligent. And then I have the ability to give that to somebody. And so, and they can do something with that. So in a world where we've got technologies that specialize in this or specialize in that, it's still siloed, right? We still could have the problem of visibility. I think no code gives you a great perspective of where a client could be regardless of database, where a client could be regardless of credit product, configured accordingly.
Yeah. Todd, to your question, answer your question in terms of connectivity and you definitely would have to when you look at these systems that you want to connect to, but also from a client perspective or from partners, vendors that you work with, right? Number of processes touch upon these systems, and in some cases it might be on a client side, it might be on the on a partner, right, that you work with. So it is important to be able to connect those or have those connections, whether that's where we typically employ web services or API, open API concepts, to be able to connect to those systems, right, tied to those systems. And some of the great benefits of workflow automation and what Decisions provide here is you can build upon those rules that Jeff was talking about for workflows and have individual flows that connect to these systems. But at the same time, each of those could be converted to an API, right? And then that API can be consumed by any other service, right? So that providing that flexibility to be to use APIs and be able to connect to these different systems allow you to be accessing those information, sending that across to different platforms, and being that glue that I was talking about, connecting all these systems together.
Does it have, I don't know if I'd say infinite, but in terms of scalability, does it make is it easier to scale in a no-code environment? Do you have to be a certain scale to enable something like this? I know in thinking of maybe how some of the people on the webinar who might watch the video might think, does this give you the ability to scale faster? And do you need to be of a certain scale to use something like this? Or is it, kind of very custom to whatever the organization size and type might be?
Jeff, I can answer that question. In terms of when you're looking for the platforms and implementing those, you do want to be able to, different ways you can deploy these solutions, right? Either you can host it on-prem, you can have it on the cloud, or it could be managed services or as a SaaS solution, right? So in terms of as you talked about scalability, availability of these platforms, right? As you build solutions on it, that'll be critical. So one of, you can go with the on-prem or AWS, which provides managed capabilities in the cloud. You can deploy these solutions as container-based, which provides elastic scalability, right? You can add more resources or scale up horizontally, again, depending on the use cases and the requirements of each individual processes. You'd be using cloud technologies and be able to scale up, right? and provide resources needed to scale to meet that demand or load. Some of the things we do as part of development is also to making sure we capture those requirements for those use cases and be able to test it out, prove it out, right? And make sure you have the adequate resources available to scale up and meet those demands, right? So that's something, again, it depends from use case to use case, but in certain scenarios, you only have a few resources using it. And in some cases, you might have thousands and thousands of users. So you definitely want to make sure you test that up front, have the appropriate sizing resources added to your infrastructure to be able to support that. And then once you leverage AWS or container-based deployments, it provides you that much more flexibility to scale up quickly.
And I think, as decisions, we try to really simplify the licensing structure of how we offer our no-code platform to clients. And we do it very simply. We have a standard license and we have an enterprise license. And what our licensing is not integration-based, asset size-based, seat user-based, or any, a lot of those more traditional type licensing arrangements that you're familiar with. And we have a lot of times where organizations have need a high availability, have a higher response time where they have to go from point A to point B and back real quickly. And they fit real well in our enterprise solution, our enterprise licensing. We have organizations that are wanting to get into automation and many times come to us with the use case, and we will kind of spec it out. We'll build the use case in a proof of concept. We'll show it to them, and we suggest, hey, start here with the standard license. And so they can ease into that automation. They can test it, they can break it, they can fail fast, they can adjust, they can go again. And we don't limit our clients on the number of use cases that they can build in this environment. So, it's not only you get one, it's how the more you build, the more value you get out of decisions.
We have just a few minutes left here. If the audience, you have any final questions, please use the Q&A button and put them into the question box, and we'll go ahead and answer those as we look to wrap up in a few short minutes here. I always like to kind of end, or at least begin to wrap up on kind of what do you see the future of this technology being? I mean, it's, kind of where are we in the life cycle of no code? How widely adopted is it in financial services? And, how much better are we looking at when it comes to, financial products and a system, if most of the banking system or most of the financial system moved in this direction? Are we looking at lower costs, better products? What potential is there if we get from where we are today to say a majority of firms using something like this?
So Neil, you want to answer that, and then I'll follow you?
Yeah, sure. Like as I mentioned previously too, so using these technologies, obviously it's going to help increase or reduce our cycle times, right? Be able to be much faster, be more efficient in the way we develop these solutions and be able to deploy it. And low code solutions, as I mentioned, that paradigm shift from coding to low code to no code, it's deployed or utilized across the board, whether it be you're creating a UI, whether it be creating workflows, your automation. You're starting to see more and more of these no code solutions coming up in these platforms. So being able to leverage these and in your own financial industries and in your own organizations, you have different business processes, right? And those needs to be transformed as you're having increasing competition, increasing client expectations. You want to be able to automate, you want to be able to innovate and accelerate in a rapid fashion, right? So you talk about a true digital enterprise, be able to transform these manual processes into automations and be able to deliver these services. At the end of the day, at FIS, we say We want to make sure our clients are happy, right? If our clients succeed, we succeed, right? So we want to be able to deliver to that. And these tools and capabilities help or empower our resources, our employees to be much faster, working together in order to be efficient, and then eventually being able to deliver that client experience or client expectations, right?
And Todd, to back up Sunil and kind of address your questions, you could argue that no code is kind of on the infancy of being used by companies across the world, across the US, around the globe. Even though we've been in business for over 10 years and our founders, this is their second go around in a no code environment, I think we've been, that magic tool in the toolbox that not everybody knows. And the people that are smart, the people that are unique, the companies that are striving to be the best have found ways to leverage no code. I do believe that our intentions are to, bring that gap between business unit and development team closer together, so there's not that expanse, so that we can respond faster. When we have situations like a pandemic, or when we have situations like a recession, or when we have situations where a credit market could change overnight, the ability to dry up a loan to value, or change a loan to value, or change a credit policy quickly, I think is going to become more and more important over time. And I think that the companies that leverage us have really found ways to be competitive in a market that's always changing.
And as you were speaking, we did get one final question here. Looks like it's more towards Sunil. What business processes at FIS are leveraging the Decisions platform, and what's the enterprise impact realized from this investment?
Sure. As I mentioned, business process automation. We have enterprise-wide initiative to transform these business processes, right? Redesign and then automate these. So we are looking at transforming these processes across enterprise-wide, solutioning these, and have been leveraging Decisions platform. A few key examples that I can provide would be, one is around in terms of when we get a new client engaged or come in through our portal for as a new client, it goes through a series of steps until they are onboarded and a solution is implemented for them. So that whole process involves collecting data from the client, understanding their requirements, the specifications with each of these products that they would like to procure from FIS. And then there's a whole life cycle and a whole process that involves all the way from getting this client onboarded to getting them implemented and the product delivered. So if I have to break it down, it's into two pieces. One, where we capture the information and data from the client, which we call as the data capturing process. The second will be the fulfillment. How do we take that data and take action on it and fulfill that? So where we using Decision platform today is in capturing those information, collecting that. We build smart forms through the no-code platform, being able to capture this data upfront from the clients and being able to leverage these on our backend systems in order for us to fulfill. Previously, you would have gone through a process of back and forth emails, multiple days. So we are shrinking that time to deliver to a client significantly and being able to deliver value to our clients much faster. Another example would be we've used Decision platform in building a single UI page for our call center operations. So today, the call center folks have multiple pages that they need to bring in multiple applications to be in order to service a user or somebody who's called in. We would like to be able to optimize that whole call center process and reduce the average call handling time. So we enable these agents to use a single UI where they have all the information they need regarding that call to service the the users. And to build that, we've utilized Decisions platform. And again, like I mentioned previously, there are a number of systems in play here. You have a call center operational systems, the backend systems, and in the middle, we've used Decisions to be that glue to tie all these systems together and provide that one-page app to the call center agents. So that's another transformation effort. So all of these investments put in at the enterprise, helping us be much faster with our delivery, being more efficient. So it at the end of the day results in a good client experience as well.
I think that's a good place to wrap up here. Sunil, thank you very much. Jeff, special thanks to you and the team at Decisions for your partnership. We very much value partners like you. Jeff, Sunil, thanks again. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.